Pauline is one of Nintendo's oldest characters, as old as Mario and Donkey Kong themselves. She first appeared in the original arcade Donkey Kong in 1981 as the damsel in distress. And lately, she's had an incredible comeback. Mario sports games, spin-offs, even becoming the mayor of New Donk City in Super Mario Odyssey. She's even made a cameo in the Super Mario Bros. Movie as mayor of New York City. All was well until it wasn't.
DK meets a talented young singer named Pauline.
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm!
Did Nintendo just make Pauline a 13-year-old? The math isn't mathing. I thought this was a grown-ass woman in present day. So who is this DK? The ages? My timeline? My DK videos, are they all wrong now?
Flashback.
Take all of that with a grain of salt, because Nintendo just doesn't give a fuck. Okay, good. They still hold up. But with this new game potentially throwing a wrench into all the Super Mario and DK timeline theories across the internet, I have a different mission for this video. Let's explore the origins of Pauline, and follow how she's changed all the way from the 80s to Donkey Kong Bananza. This is Origin Oracle. Let's first head back to Pauline's debut in 1981's arcade smash hit, Donkey Kong. A giant ape named Donkey Kong has kidnapped this innocent woman, at the time named Lady, and carries her up a construction site. And it's up to this carpenter named Jumpman to rescue her. Jumpman, of course, would later become Mario.
Oh shit, here we go again.
I can't tell you how many comments I've read that argue this fact, even though Miyamoto has confirmed it time and time again. Jumpman is in fact Mario. It's the same person. Until further notice. So armed with a joystick and a single jump button, it's up to the player to guide Jumpman up the construction site, dodging obstacles to reach the top where Donkey Kong awaits. While the plot is simple, Donkey Kong was one of the earliest games that used cutscenes to advance the plot. So in the grand scheme of things, this title pioneered the idea of giving the player motivation through in-game scenes. But there were deeper plot points that weren't obvious during gameplay. These three main characters were designed by Shigeru Miyamoto, the graphic designer for the Donkey Kong project, who would go on to be a producer of many of Nintendo's hit series like Super Mario and Legend of Zelda. He stated in an interview that the story of Donkey Kong is about Donkey Kong being Mario's pet, kidnapping and escaping with his girlfriend. The intention was that Donkey Kong was not a nemesis, but just a gorilla Mario kept who ran away. Quite questionable activities for Mario having a pet gorilla. But this story gives us some key info. Mario and Lady are an item. We'll unpack that later. Donkey Kong was initially planned to be a Popeye game for arcades, but Nintendo failed to get the license, so they had to create their own characters, modeling Jumpman, Donkey Kong, and Lady after Popeye, Bluto, and Olive Oil respectively. As you can see, the original artwork of Lady is pretty different from the Pauline we have now, depicted with blonde or orangish hair in Miyamoto's original designs. She was depicted in her standard red dress, but in-game they colored it pink, which makes me wonder if this was to differentiate her colors a bit from Mario. The American localization of Donkey Kong had a different illustration of Lady though. With Xavier Leslie Cabarga as the designer, his rendition took inspiration from Betty Boop, just with a smaller head, while Mario and Donkey Kong remained inspired by Popeye and Bluto. And originally the game was supposed to include Lady screaming out for help in English, with them using a voice synthesizer to have her yell, "Help! Help!" at the beginning and "Nice" whenever Mario completed a successful jump. That's my best Pauline impression. Nice. But after asking an English teacher to listen to the lines, she stated the pronunciation wasn't great, and initially interpreted it as Lady yelling, "Kelp." Okay, I see her point. Miyamoto later said, quote, "We couldn't change the pronunciation at that point, so we stopped her from talking and changed help to Donkey Kong growling and nice to Miyamoto has credited these catchy sounds as being a big part of what drew people to the game at the arcade. But what about the name Pauline? When did that come about? Well, that was also something established by the US marketing machine. The character was Lady until the name Pauline started appearing in corresponding Donkey Kong coloring and activity books in 1982, released by Modern Promotions. Nintendo would later confirm that Pauline was named after Polly James, the wife of Nintendo of America's warehouse manager at the time, Don James. But former president of Nintendo of America, Minoru Arakawa, named the character mistakenly, thinking that James's wife was named Pauline and not Polly. Knowing me, I'd be anxiously thinking about this mistake randomly at 3 AM for the rest of my life if I were him. But with the name Pauline selected, they began using it in Donkey Kong merchandise, like those activity books. And these books not only address her as Pauline, but also have some of the earliest depictions of her being a singer who who works at an amusement park known as Videoland Amusement Park, singing for guests during what's known as the Big Show. She's the animal caretaker for the park as well, while Mario works as a carpenter who has a deep admiration for Pauline but is unable to express it. All of this takes place before DK breaks out of his cage, kidnaps Pauline, and sets up the events of the game. Also, my gosh, this Mario design. Seeing Pauline is depicted as a performer both in Super Mario Odyssey and as a teenage singer in Donkey Kong Bananza, I have to wonder if what's shown in these coloring books is just a coincidence, or did Nintendo actually reach back into the bowels of its earliest merchandise to flesh out her character? This naming move by Nintendo of America would create an identity split for Pauline, with her continuing to be addressed as Lady in Japan, while the US went full speed ahead with Pauline. And with Donkey Kong being such a massive success in America, this didn't just end with the arcade title. I'm talking a portable Game & Watch version, cartoons, merchandise, music albums.
It's a sure bet when you trust in Mario.
All right, on. He got that job done, and now he's smiley, oh.
The word success is an understatement, and this would be Nintendo's first major step in becoming a regular household name. Pauline's biggest role after Donkey Kong would be in the 1983 animated television show Saturday Supercade.
Well, Saturday Supercade, gather round, we'll get your video friends together.
Running for 2 seasons on CBS, it was an anthology series about popular video games at that time, including segments about Frogger, Pitfall, Q*bert, and of course, Donkey Kong. The Donkey Kong segment starred Mario and Pauline on their mission to capture DK after he's escaped from the circus. And each episode used their pursuit as a way to get them mixed up into some other plot, often involving some set of villains that the three end up thwarting. Mario, the circus owner, is voiced by Peter Cullen, Optimus Prime himself.
That Todd is dangerous. We gotta save him.
Autobots, roll out.
While Pauline is the animal trainer, voiced by Judy Strangis.
Not even Donkey Kong can do the triple trapeze.
The very first person to ever voice Pauline. And in this series, Mario, Pauline, and DK are still heavily based on their original US artwork, with Pauline keeping her blonde hair and red dress. But with not much else to go on personality-wise, the segments really make these characters their own. In this cartoon, Mario and Pauline are pretty much unrecognizable compared to how we know them now. But I'd argue this show was probably the only thing that fleshed out Pauline's identity as a character in America at that time. Unfortunately, Saturday Supercade has never been re-released in any format, though you can find episodes archived around YouTube. But it's such an awesome window into a pre-Super Mario Bros. Time with such a different depiction of Mario before he gained his status as Nintendo's mascot. And game-wise, Pauline would take a backseat as Donkey Kong and Mario went off to star in new titles, like Donkey Kong Jr., where DK's son, Jr., goes on an adventure to save him from Mario's captivity. And in 1983, Mario would go off to star in his own arcade title, Mario Brothers, kicking off his debut as a plumber defeating enemies in the sewers alongside his brother Luigi. But did you know that same year, there was a plan to bring a new Donkey Kong game to Nintendo's newest home console, exclusive to Japan at that time, known as the Famicom, the same system that would go on to become the Nintendo Entertainment System in America. That planned Donkey Kong title was known as Donkey Kong no Ongaku Asobi, roughly translating to Donkey Kong's Fun with Music, where DK, Mario, and Pauline would play music as part of a band. Originally slated for a December 1983 release, this game featured 2 modes, Music Quiz and Donkey Band. And based on screenshots, it seemed like in Music Quiz you would play the notes on the piano keys as Mario and Lady, corresponding to notes on screen. Donkey Band is even more interesting as it would have had karaoke style gameplay, allowing players to sing into the controller's built-in microphone, with DK on bass, DK Jr. on drums, Mario on piano, and Pauline handling the vocals, once again showing her off as a singer. This seems baked into her DNA as a character. You think they had Cranky Kong play the bass in Tropical Freeze because of this game? It's probably a stretch. Unfortunately, Donkey Kong no Ongaku Asobi was cancelled due to Nintendo not having the proper rights to the songs used in-game. But it's crazy to think how forward-thinking this game was over 20 years before the days of Guitar Hero and Rock Band. As for Pauline, she'd make minor appearances in games like Pinball in the bonus stage, where Mario has to unstuck her from the top of the board, and Donkey Kong Classics, released in 1988 for the NES, which I don't really count since it's just a re-release of Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. As time went on, Donkey Kong and Mario continued to branch out into their own series. Nintendo would cement their place in the market with the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System in America in 1985, launching with Mario's official breakout title, Super Mario Bros. But something was different. There was a new damsel in distress in this game, Princess Peach, or as they called her in America at that time, Princess Toadstool. And on top of that, she was kidnapped by a new nemesis, Bowser, king of the Koopa tribe. But this was not Pauline. Pauline was left behind, replaced by a whole ass princess in a fantasy world called the Mushroom Kingdom. Can you believe this? Mario had moved on.
Sensational.
And DK must have returned to the jungle with his son, occasionally stepping out to bother the manager of a greenhouse at one point named Stanley. But I guess that wasn't too important because nobody talks about that game. But Pauline had a slight identity crisis that lingered in the air as well. After being established as Pauline in that original Donkey Kong activity book, all versions of Donkey Kong released in America referred to her as Pauline, or Mario's girlfriend. While in Japan, the latest Famicom version of Donkey Kong still called her Lady. You had manuals in Europe calling her Louise, some documentation even calling her Paula. Its clear consistency was not the priority here, and whether or not Pauline was a love interest for Mario depended heavily on which manual you're reading. The original game heavily implies this with the heart graphic appearing whenever Mario gets to Pauline, and the original American flyer published for the game even says Mario should get DK out of the way so he and the beautiful girl can live happily ever after. But allow me to continue stirring this pot.
Yeah, boy.
In the early 90s, there was a Super Mario manga by Kazuki Motoyama that ran a gag where Mario is asked about his first crush, and he sheepishly admits it was Lady. They even bring her out in her old pixelated form, a nod to her having been missed for so long. Later in that manga, Lady reappears as a mechanic in the Super Mario Kart adaptation, approaching Mario to remind him that she was the one that was rescued back in the day, while Peach glares menacingly from the background.
Did you not get my message? I'm so sorry. We didn't want you to find out this way.
So by this point, it seems pretty widely accepted, both in Japan and the West, that Pauline was definitely at least a crush Mario had. Either way, as Pauline was phased out and Peach was brought in as the new leading lady for the Mario series, it seemed that was it for her character, absent from several games for many years after this. That was until 1994's Game Boy classic, Donkey Kong.
All right, son, point out the animal that did this to you.
The beast is back.
This ambitious title would bring back Pauline from a long rest, complete with a redesign that made up her modern look as we still see it today. This game is still legendary to me. If you haven't played this, it's definitely one of the best Game Boy titles out there. Donkey Kong for Game Boy, also known as Donkey Kong 94, might look like a remake of the original arcade game, but it quickly becomes its own thing. The game starts as the original did. Donkey Kong kidnaps Pauline and carries her to the top of the construction site. The first 4 levels take place in the construction site, pulled directly from the original game. And after a familiar boss fight with Donkey Kong toward the end, Mario saves Pauline, as DK bonks his head on the girders below. But then the game just totally flips expectations. DK isn't done. He runs off with Pauline again, revealing that those 4 stages were only the beginning of a much larger adventure. Now Mario must traverse a big city overworld and in a twist, collect keys and open doors to chase after DK through dozens of puzzle platforming stages. This becomes the basis for the rest of the game, with DK94 boasting a whopping 101 stages across 9 different worlds. It's insane how much content is packed in here, and even DK Jr. gets in on the action. Gameplay-wise, DK94 is full of new mechanics. Mario can perform handstands to block falling objects and flip for higher jumps, moves that would later appear in some form in mainline Mario titles. You could also play this on the Super Game Boy peripheral for the Super Nintendo, which gave it a fully colored look and better sound. Pauline even gets her originally planned voice lines in this version. And it goes without saying, Donkey Kong 94 paved the way for the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series that would come later. After giving a lot of focus to the Super Mario and Zelda series in the early 90s, Shigeru Miyamoto returned to produce this title, redesigning Donkey Kong and giving him his iconic red tie for the very first time. But back to Pauline. She doesn't play a huge role this time around, remaining the damsel in distress. And after chasing her across the entire world, Mario reaches his final confrontation with DK and Jr. in this tower. This leads into a showdown where Mario must throw barrels at DK, and even after beating him, he's not done. He becomes this massive, enraged version of himself, and Mario must avoid his attacks while throwing barrels at his giant head. DK has had enough this time. But after a long battle, he's defeated, and it seems like the game ends in the Mushroom Kingdom, where Pauline rewards Mario with a mushroom, making him bigger for reasons. Well, after getting bigger, Mario catches a falling DK, and DK screams out for help before they take a selfie together and the game ends. So it's safe to say that this game finally consolidated all the scattered depictions of Pauline. She was no longer Lady, but officially Pauline globally. Redesigned by Miyamoto and Yoichi Kotabe, the legendary artist who established much of Mario's early Super Mario art style. And from this point forward, Pauline is always a brunette, keeps her blue eyes and red dress, and gains her signature earrings. Miyamoto and the director of Donkey Kong 94, Masayuki Kameyama, gave an interview published in the game's official strategy guide in 1994, where they reiterated a few facts about Mario, DK, and Pauline's relationship. I'm actually going to read a bit of this verbatim because it clears the air on a lot of common questions. What's the relationship between Mario and Donkey Kong? It's a long story, Miyamoto says, but from the beginning, Donkey Kong was Mario's pet. In that case, why did Donkey Kong kidnap Pauline and run off with her? He did that to get a rise out of Mario. Mario, the plumber, owns a gorilla and worked at a construction site. The gorilla, Donkey Kong, decided to annoy Mario by kidnapping the girl Pauline and running away with her. That's why when creating the ending for the original arcade game, I spent a lot of time thinking around the theme of the player outwitting the prankster, rather than trying to kill DK. Is Pauline Mario's girlfriend? She is his ex, Miyamoto. The Mushroom Kingdom looks to be on the outskirts of Donkey Kong's homeland, as seen in the game's ending. I guess Mario met Peach there, and his eyes started to wander. Laughs. Kameyama. In other words, this takes place before Super Mario Bros. Later on, after Mario became famous, he probably gave Pauline the flick.
She belongs to the streets.
And it confirms that this was Miyamoto's intention to make Pauline and Lady the same person. And Jumpman and Mario, by the way. Though it seems Japanese audiences took some time to get used to this change, with one of the Mario encyclopedias published at that time listing Pauline and Lady as two separate characters. Oh Mario, you stud. Despite this, modern games would begin merging the two characters in Japan, with Smash Bros. Trophies specifically stating Lady and Pauline are the same character. Pauline now had a solid identity and played a significant role in a game for the first time in 13 years. Unfortunately, she would disappear again, as Mario and DK entered a new era for both their series. In November of 1994, Donkey Kong would be rebooted with the Super Nintendo classic Donkey Kong Country, developed by British game studio Rare after Miyamoto agreed to hand off the series to this talented team. Donkey Kong was given a new look with the approval of Miyamoto and brought back as a brand new DK, the game highlighting the idea of out with the old and in with the new in more ways than one. Its pre-rendered 3D graphics flipped the industry upside down, and this hip, younger DK was now the hero of the story. At its core, the Donkey Kong Country series has nothing to do with Pauline, but I bring it up mainly to mention the introduction of Cranky Kong. In this series, Cranky is established as the Donkey Kong we've seen in the classic games up to this point. Now old and retired after he and Mario made amends, he now critically oversees the adventures of his successor, DK. I won't get into the grandfather-father is this DK Jr. debate in this video. I have plenty of DK videos going into that fiasco, but the important thing to note is that Cranky Kong is established here as the Kong who initially kidnapped Pauline. Shortly after, Mario would continue his adventures in the Mushroom Kingdom in the groundbreaking Super Mario 64. One of Nintendo's most influential titles as he crossed over into the 3D plane. Princess Peach was now the apple of Mario's eye, so there was no need to bring back Pauline at any point to confuse audiences. As a result, it was almost as if she was scrubbed from history for another 12 years. An example of this is the Game & Watch Gallery series for the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. This portable series was a collection of remade Game & Watch titles from the 80s, giving a fresh coat of paint to simple games like Octopus, Chef, and Donkey Kong. Instead of the Game & Watch models from back in the day, the Mario cast were the stars. So the original DK Game & Watch title received a remake in Game & Watch Gallery 2 for the Game Boy Color in 1997. And you'd think Pauline would be featured in this case, right? Yeah, she was fully replaced by Princess Peach. It's interesting because they used DK's old design here, so Pauline was done dirty. 2002's Game & Watch Gallery 4 for the Game Boy Advance would again feature Donkey Kong as an unlockable game, and once again, replaced by Peach. For what it's worth, you can play the classic version of the game as well, and you could argue this is Pauline, but my point stands. Overall, this is a really cool series that helped introduce the Game & Watch titles to a new audience, but as the years went by, Pauline was more or less a legacy character, missing from sports games and spin-offs and left out of Mario's growing cast of recurring characters. Until all of that changed in 2004, when Nintendo decided to revisit the rivalry between Mario and Donkey Kong in a brand new way. Mario vs. Donkey Kong for the Game Boy Advance, a full spiritual successor to Donkey Kong 94, and this time it stars the modern DK with totally different motivations. Well, actually, Pauline isn't in this game either, but we need to talk about it to set the stage. Donkey Kong is chilling at home until he sees an ad for Mario's latest attempt at capitalistic domination, Mini Marios. This excites DK, and wanting to get his hands on one of these, he hurries to the store to find out that they're all sold out. We've all felt this rage. So it's time for the next best thing. Bust into Mario's factory and take his shit. Mario now must travel across multiple levels to retrieve his toys and stop Donkey Kong. And in the end, after they fight it out, Mario decides to award DK with a free Mini Mario. But don't let this gesture fool you. He can easily write this off on his taxes. So this game was essentially the revival of the Donkey Kong Game Boy formula, and it would spawn its own series for Nintendo's portable consoles for years to come. Which brings us back to Pauline, who makes her return in the sequel, Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis, released in 2006 for the Nintendo DS. Mario's toys were so successful, he's moved on to the next stage of his capitalist takeover, an amusement park called Super Mini Mario World, based on his successful line of minis, revealed to now have Toad, Peach, and DK as part of the set. The game opens at the ribbon cutting ceremony, where Mario awards his his guest of honor, Pauline, with a Mini Mario toy. And can I just say how shady this is? Like, Mario and Peach aren't confirmed to be an item whatsoever, but it's just funny after all of these years, Pauline is the first person he thinks to cut the ribbon on this place. Anyway, Donkey Kong is infatuated with Pauline and offers her his Mini DK, but she only has eyes for the Mini Mario instead. And in his rage, he snatches Pauline away. And Mario is like pissed. Something was definitely going on between them here. I don't care what Nintendo says. So in a twist of gameplay, Mario now uses his minis to help him go after DK. I guess he didn't think DK was worth the trouble of using his own two hands for this fight. He literally beats Donkey Kong by throwing minis at him at the end of the game. Poor DK. A gasping Mario tracks down Pauline. I mean, he is heaving in this cutscene.
Yeah, that brother's starving.
Yes, sir, brother.
And he finds her well taken care of and showered with gifts this whole time by Donkey Kong. DK is sad, but the whole situation is okay because Pauline takes his Mini DK and shows it some love. That sounds suggestive. So that's it. Everyone is happy, so why the hell is there another Mario vs. Donkey Kong game? This one is called Minis March Again, an online exclusive DSiWare game at that time, and Pauline has now made her full return as the damsel in distress for this series, with her and Mario opening up an expansion to the amusement park. But once DK gets there, it's sold out, so he kidnaps Pauline. Mario just needs to start setting aside things for DK to avoid a whole game's worth of trouble. And at this point, the game commits to the whole gameplay style of Mario using his minis to get through all of these obstacles. And it ends with DK, Pauline, and Toad all just chilling together in a room, and they reveal that all of the events of the game were just to test out the Mini Marios. I guess the good news is they passed. So they all seem to have a good relationship now. That must have ended this series, right? Miniland Mayhem released in 2010 for the Nintendo DS. At this point, Mario's just killing it in this business. He's opening yet another theme park. This time, there's a free Pauline toy for the first 100 guests, which of course DK wants, but he's too late. He actually kindly asked Mario for one, and this is Mario's response.
No!
That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that, and it became personal with me.
So again, he gets pissed and kidnaps Pauline, and Mario starts throwing slurs.
Big monkey?
I mean, this didn't even look like 100 people were in front of DK, but okay. Anyway, I will say, voice acting wise here, Pauline has come a long way since the Kelp days. She actually sounds like she's fearing for her life, which is odd considering that they were just hanging out testing Mini Marios last time. But it's a shame I couldn't figure out who the voice actress was for this game because she's uncredited. And if anyone knows, let me know in the comments. I don't think it's Kate Higgins, who is her current voice actress. Similarly to the previous title, Mario will control his minis to pursue DK through the park's various attractions, leading up to the final boss. Pauline up here shivering and shit. But DK is pulling out all the stops this time with their final confrontation on the Ferris wheel. And Mario is here taking his time blasting minis at Donkey Kong while Pauline is here spinning wildly on this Ferris wheel. This is not my idea of saving her. You are Mario, just go up there and get her. Well, after their battle, Mario gives DK his Pauline toy, and they all ride the Ferris wheel and live happily ever after. This friendship actually carries over to the follow-up game, Mario and Donkey Kong, Minis on the Move. Pauline is not a kidnapped maiden this time around, but seems to be a full-time amusement park worker for Mario. The way I see it, Mario manipulated his ex-girlfriend by texting her after all these years to put her in a position where she can come work for him full-time. So Pauline now works with DK to run a part of the park called the Mini Arcade. Not much else to say here about her appearance other than she's Mario's servant now, but it's good to see them getting along. until they don't. Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars for the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U, released in March 2015. This would be Mario and DK's last rumble until further notice, and this time DK just gets right to the point and scoops up Pauline for no reason. Mario whips out the minis again to rescue her, going through 6 worlds filled with puzzles before finally catching up to DK. Enough is enough. It's time to end DK once and for all. In hindsight, this is a f***ed-up way to have a surprise party. I would be so pissed. So Pauline had quite a run in these games, but honestly, not much has changed since her original appearance. She was still a damsel in distress, and it seemed like she was mostly there for nostalgia. But Nintendo would move forward to include Pauline in a much bigger way by playing a larger role in Mario's next mainline title, Super Mario Odyssey.
Here we go, off the rails, but you know it's time to raise our sails. It's freedom like you never knew.
Man, it's crazy to think this game is 8 years old now, my gosh. Mario must travel the world alongside his new hat companion, Cappy, to stop Bowser from forcing Princess Peach to marry him. And one stop along the way is New Donk City. It's a huge metropolis in what's known as the Metro Kingdom. But New Donk City is dripping with references to the original Donkey Kong arcade game, a mainline title that really leaned into Mario's roots. And it's heavily implied that the original events of Donkey Kong occurred in this town. You've got construction girders, retro signs, and even billboards with Pauline's original lady design all over the place. I remember this was such a welcome surprise. The mayor of this sprawling metropolis is none other than Pauline, who could have been mayor this whole time for all we know, but she's unable to welcome Mario properly because Bowser unleashed chaos throughout the city to advertise his wedding. Mario does a bit of cleanup and saves it from the immediate danger while restoring its power, and after Pauline gives her thanks, she mentions an upcoming city festival happening. She's described as an old friend in this game, but we know what went down. And as Mario spends more time in New Donk City, he helps Pauline rebuild her band for the festival, leading up to his attendance as the guest of honor. The whole thing is a retelling of the events of Donkey Kong, while Pauline performs the theme song of the game, Jump Up Superstar, with her restored band. Voiced by actress Kate Higgins, who's known for playing roles like Sakura from Naruto and Tails from Sonic the Hedgehog at one point, she's actually the singer of this song as well. It's such a catchy one too, and just a refreshing song to hear in this series overall. And it's nice to see them fully lean into her roots as a singer. Producer Yoshiaki Koizumi, one of my favorite minds at Nintendo, known for Super Mario Galaxy and writing the story for Link's Awakening, was the driving force behind Pauline's return. He participated in an Ask Me Anything on Reddit regarding Super Mario Odyssey many years ago, to which someone asked, "What drew you into bringing Pauline back into the mainstream Mario game after all these years?" To which he responded, "When we were deciding which kingdoms to have in the game, we knew we wanted the city environment, and we wanted something that would have resonance with players. We knew that players know Pauline, so we of course wanted to make her the mayor of New Donk City. It's important to note that though they are called kingdoms, they do not necessarily have royalty, and that's why she's the mayor." Also in this AMA, he reveals they came up with Jump Up Superstar while developing Pauline's character. As we were developing Pauline more as a character, we know that she was going to be interested in jazz. It was interesting for us to have the first song in a Mario game with vocals. Have you guys been finding yourself singing it? Yeah. One other interesting thing about Pauline is that she's able to quiz Mario about herself during the post-game content, to which we find out silly facts like her hobby of taking walks and her hat being her most prized possession. But one question she asks stuck out to me. Which of these things did I actually do a long time ago? To which the answer is captured by ape, which is technically not something you do, Pauline, but she says to Mario, "I knew you'd remember. It was traumatic at the time, but it helped make me the person I am now." Odyssey did a lot of things to legitimize Donkey Kong as part of the Mario canon, and I'm here for it. But this one appearance opened the floodgates for other Pauline appearances, and she stopped being a stranger. Featured in sports games like Mario Tennis Aces and Mario Golf Super Rush, and Mario Strikers Battle League. She joined the Mario Party with the latest title Super Mario Party Jamboree, and she got added to the Mario Kart roster in Mario Kart Tour for mobile devices and in the Booster Course Pass for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I have an hour-plus video on Mario Kart that needs some love, by the way, if you have any interest in that topic. So with her officially brought back into the Mario roster, it was only a matter of time until we saw her again in the next mainline title for the newly released Nintendo Switch 2. Oh look, there she is right from the jump in Mario Kart World. Amazing. Welcome back to the squad. Oh, no new Mario game announced? Yet DK is coming back, complete with a brand new model and in a 3D environment once again. He can smash everything? This is Donkey Kong Bananza. a huge revival for the DK series, with the last mainline title being Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, released for the Wii U back in 2014. This one is bringing a new formula to the forefront, with members of the Super Mario Odyssey development team contributing to this game. This would be the first DK game developed by Nintendo's internal teams since Donkey Kong Jungle Beat in 2004. This game was suggested by none other than Yoshiaki Koizumi, who wanted the Mario Odyssey team to take a stab at Donkey Kong as well. With some consultation from Miyamoto, they focused on gameplay mechanics surrounding DK's big arms. One of the programmers on the team was playing around with something called voxel technology, a technique used to create chunky, 3D-looking environments utilized in moments where you can see Mario plow through snow in Super Mario Odyssey, for example. Then they said, wait, wouldn't this be perfect for Donkey Kong, since he's all about smashing and breaking stuff? And that idea ended up becoming the core of this new game. So initially, DK's companion in this game was revealed to be a tiny, mysterious rock, which is very appropriate since DK will be breaking a lot of those in this game. That was the case until we learned a little bit more about this title in a recent Nintendo Direct.
That's when DK meets a talented young singer named Pauline.
And here we are, full circle. A 13-year-old Pauline is now existing in a game with modern DK, who instead of kidnapping her, is helping her get home. And Pauline's singing is going to be very relevant to the gameplay of this game, allowing DK to transform into different forms to help him in combat and traversing this large world. But this brings up several questions about her character. So maybe this takes place way in the past and this DK is actually Cranky Kong? Oh, okay, wait, no, he's here in the game. Okay, maybe this is a different Cranky Kong from the past. Oh wait, what are Diddy and Dixie doing here? Some fans think Pauline was sent in the setting for the game from the past, or transformed into a kid by the enemy. I'd love to hear your theories in the comments below before the game comes out. But on that note, if you want me to cover Donkey Kong Bananza in a full deep dive, just let me know with a like on this video. 1,000 likes and I'll make it happen. Either way, I'm looking forward to an awesome DK title with charming characters and clean gameplay. But when it comes to this whole timeline thing, Nintendo could do one of two things. Explain why Pauline is a young girl here, or when it comes to continuity, just keep not giving a f***.